Hello and welcome to Select 10. In this video, we will break down our picks for the top 10 best new Netflix original movies released in the last few weeks. 9 of these 10 movies are available in the English language, and I've added one non-English movie that I think every movie fans should see. This list of 10 new Netflix movies contains new action, fantasy, and comedy films, so watch the entire video to avoid missing any of them. Now let's start the video. Number 10. My Name is Vendetta. It is a 2022 crime action film directed by Cosimo Gomez. The plot centers on Santo, a notorious gangster assassin who now lives quietly in the Italian hills with his wife, Ingrid, and their girl, Sofia. Their orderly lives are thrown into disarray when Santo's former rivals murder his wife and force him to run to Italy to protect their daughter. Meanwhile, Sofia has a lot to process because she has no prior knowledge of her father's past life, but fortunately, they share the same tendency to think along the lines of kill or be killed. While Santo and Sofia are on the move, they prepare their revenge against a frightening enemy who is out to murder them. Even though it isn't the most perfect film when it comes to the usual vengeance story, it does provide you with enough raw adrenaline and thrills, which is sufficient to make this a good action thriller and enjoyable to watch. And the film has a 5.5 rating on IMDb. Number 9. The Lost Lotteries. It is a comedy drama film directed by Pruexa Amarugi. The plot centers on a struggling woman and her son, Tay, who distribute lottery tickets to interested parties up until the arrival of massive gangster men who steal the tickets away under the excuse of loan repayments. However, when it appears that the lottery tickets are going to transform their livelihoods, Tay is helped by a bunch of unfortunate individuals, and they are all now forced to work together to steal a ruthless crime leader's golden lottery tickets worth a fortune. What follows next is a full-fledged hilarious attempt to acquire tickets, packed with unexpected twists and turns, since neither of them is equipped to be a professional robber. Although the plot of the story is really exciting, what makes it even more enjoyable is watching the group strategize and carry out their operation while making hilarious mistakes in an attempt to obtain winning lottery tickets. It is a wildly entertaining film with a unique plot, great action, and an odd but satisfying ending. And the movie has a 5.2 rating on IMDb. Number 8. God's Crooked Lines. It is a 2022 psychological thriller film directed by Oriol Paulo. The plot centers on Alice, a private detective who enters a mental health facility under the pretense of having delusions to gather information for a case she is investigating involving the mysterious murder of a prisoner. This entire mission is created in cooperation with the hospital's head, and by now some of you may have predicted what happens next, but if not, things go awfully wrong, and her life is put at risk when the hospital atmosphere and prisoners mess with her mind. If that isn't enough, when she claims to be an undercover detective, the director refuses to be aware of any such covert mission. Now being trapped there as a lunatic, where no one can verify her version of events, Alice must find a means to demonstrate that she is not insane. Given its sometimes puzzling storyline, the plot is a beautifully written psychological riddle that will keep you engaged until the very end. And the movie has a 6.4 rating on IMDb and a 70% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Number 7. Drifting Home. It is a 2022 animated fantasy adventure film directed by Hiroyasu Ishida. The film focuses on two childhood best friends, Kosuke and Natsume, who have been treated as family ever since, but, after a tragedy, their friendship no longer appears to be as strong as it once was. But during their spring break, they and their friends go to an apartment building that is about to be dismantled and, surprising enough, the apartment building also happened to be Kosuke and Natsume's childhood home, which was filled with emotions. However, as they were having fun, they were abruptly caught in a strange event, and when they woke up, they discovered that the apartment block had floated into a sea. Following that, the plot of the film develops as Kosuke, Natsume, and their friends try to stay alive while figuring out their way back home. The movie's main theme is the character's emotional story, which masterfully captures the emotions and sentiments that people become aware of as they get older. And the film has a 6.2 rating on IMDb and a 77% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Number 6. Bullet Train. It is a 2022 action comedy movie starring Brad Pitt as Ladybug. The story revolves around a freelancer with the nickname Ladybug who has had a streak of disastrous assignments and is now anxious to finish his new assignment without murdering anyone. However, Ladybug's new mission places him on a route of death, where he encounters ruthless killers from across the nation who are all seeking the same task as him, but have different priorities that have devastating consequences. The main carnage begins when he boards the train, where, unknown to him, there are a bunch of vicious assassins present, whose missions are somehow linked to Ladybug's mission. In Train, each assassin has an interesting history that ultimately led them to get on the train. The movie features a good balance of action and comedy, with unanticipated twists and revelations, as each murderer tries to complete their assigned task. And the film has a 7.3 rating on IMDb and a 76% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Number 5. Codename Emperor. It is a 2022 political spy thriller film directed by Jorge Cuara. The plot centers on Juan, an officer of an intelligence organization assigned with tracking a millionaire family participating in the smuggling of weapons, while also maintaining a close eye on a young politician. While Juan operates through seduction and dishonesty, his own strategy puts him in a difficult situation when he falls in love with the couple's maid to learn information. And to make matters worse, Juan is also ordered to frame the honest politician he was monitoring, which forces him to face a complex scenario in which he must decide whether to give in and do as these greedy officials say, or stand up for what is right. Although the film feels convincing in how it portrays the greed found in politics, it still plays out like a typical espionage thriller with a few suspenseful moments. It's worth seeing if you are into spy thriller stories. And the movie has a 5.8 rating on IMDb and an 88% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Number 4. STUTZ. It is a 2022 documentary film directed by Jonah Hill. The film is about Phil Stutz, a famous psychotherapist who was born and raised in Manhattan, and for numerous years, Stutz worked as a penitentiary counselor at the notorious Rikers Island, addressing the issues of violent convicts. Consequently, throughout the course of 40 years, he has treated thousands of clients, including famous entrepreneurs and celebrities, such as his friend and this film director Jonah Hill. The film looks into Stutz's life and guides the audience through his well-known imagination techniques, the tools. The format and topics won't appeal to everyone, and if documentaries aren't your thing, skip this one. But if you do watch, don't miss this one. It is an engaging and provocative film that focuses on psychology and emotional well-being. And the movie has an 8 rating on IMDb and a 97% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Number 3. KANTARA. It is a fantasy action film directed by Rishabh Shetty. The movie is set in a community where, 150 years prior, a king had granted the residents ownership of the land. While the main plot occurs many years after these events, where a forest warden is attempting to stop poaching and tree cutting on that property, which has now become a protected forest. However, this is further complicated by the fact that the locals don't wish to listen to intruders who try to control their way of life, and they think that the forest was given to them as a blessing by their mythological guardian of the forest. While everything is going on, the plot focuses on the town protector, Shiva, who, with the help of the king's heir, attempts to protect the forest and his community from evil intruders. KANTARA is, in essence, a story about man's struggle with nature, but as it mixes aspects from traditional folklore and cultural history, it takes on a much deeper meaning. And a little reminder, the film is not available in English audio, but it does have English subtitles, so give it a shot, you won't regret viewing it. And the film has an 8.6 rating on IMDb and an 83% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. Number 2. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. It is a 2022 animated musical fantasy film directed by Guillermo del Toro. The plot takes place in dictatorial Italy in the 1930s and centers on Geppetto, an elderly gentleman with a beloved son. However, catastrophe soon strikes, taking his son from him and leaving him with an empty life and a feeling of hopelessness. While still grieving and hoping for the resurrection of his young son, he builds a kid out of wood who looks unlike a living person. However, things change for him when a wood fairy sees his grief and grants his created being a soul. The movie focuses on the funny and rebellious escapades of a wooden boy, Pinocchio, who is trying to find his place in the world while anxiously trying to please his father, Geppetto. This Pinocchio adaptation really hits a nerve thanks to the great Guillermo del Toro's imagination, which added a lot of freshness to the well-known story. It's a touching tale that strikes a fine line between humor, emotion, and music, and never fails to bring tears of happiness and excitement. And the film has a 7.9 rating on IMDb and an 85% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Number 1. All Quiet on the Western Front. It is a 2022 epic anti-war film, directed by Edward Berger. The film is set during the closing moments of World War I and tells the story of a young German soldier while also following an official's mission as they try to put an end to the chaos. The plot revolves around youngster Paul Baumer and his friends Albert and Muller, who, inspired by a spirit of patriotism, volunteer in the German army. While Paul and his comrades are ready to serve in the field, Paul lied about his age on the paperwork in order to serve in the service. But sadly, once Paul and his buddies are in a combat situation, things escalate and their passion rapidly starts to decline, while a horrible end is waiting for them. The film portrays warfare as an endless source of suffering, endless damage, and despair, and it stands as a sad memorial to the warriors on both sides who lost their lives in battle. The icing on the cake is its stunning cinematography and chilling background music, which take the movie to a whole other level. And the movie has a 7.8 rating on IMDb and a 90% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. That's it for today. Thank you for watching this video.